Hello and welcome to Love Thy Lawyer, where we talk to real lawyers about their lives in and out of the practice of law, how they got to be lawyers, and what their experience has been. I'm Louis Goodman, the host of the show, and yes, I'm a lawyer. Nobody's perfect. He is a former Alameda County Deputy District Attorney, and although a good friend, he and I battled through a toughly litigated arson case against each other in front of the late Honorable Jack. After leaving the district attorney's office, he developed a thriving civil practice using his courtroom skills to provide representation to those who have been victimized by negligence. He has litigated every type of personal injury matter, including soft tissue, catastrophic loss, brain injuries, and the loss of limbs. He is an aggressive litigator and an outstanding attorney. Kevin Taguchi, welcome to Love Thy Lawyer.
Wow, Louis, quite the introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well,
Really
Kevin, thank you. And, Kevin, I really have always considered you a good friend, and I have considered you a good, tough litigator. So where's your office located right now?
I am located in the heart of Alameda County, which is Hayward, California.
And how long have you been in that location?
Whoa, since 1992.
What sort of practice?
Almost 30 years?
Almost.
20. Oh, my goodness. Wow, it goes by fast.
What sort of practice do you have?
Right now, I exclusively do personal injury. It's personal injury.
And at one time you did some criminal defense, is that correct?
For a while, after I left the district attorney's office, I subwayed right into criminal defense practice, since that's what I knew.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in Los Angeles, the Valley to be specific, San Bernardino Valley.
Where'd you go to high school?
Van Nuys High with the lovely Paula Abdul.
Really? Did you know her in high school?
Oh yeah, very well, and junior high.
And so what was your experience in high school like?
It was very social. I got myself involved in sports, student government. I was very active, you could say, in high school.
What sort of sports did you play?
I got into volleyball, and I played tennis, and then started playing volleyball and just gravitated to volleyball and got very, very experienced at it.
So was Paula Abdul there cheerleading on the side?
No, we didn't have cheerleaders for the volleyball, but she was one of the cheerleaders at school.
When you got out of high school, where did you end up going to college?
I immediately went to UCLA, which was my first choice and probably my only choice.
What was that experience like?
UCLA was great. I used to go there when I was in junior high and high school and, just to hang out on campus. And I ended up playing sports there as well. So that really was a highlight. I lived in the dorms. I also did student government there. It was a really fun experience.
What sort of sports did you play at UCLA?
I started rowing crew. I was a little bit intimidated by UCLA volleyball since it was the best team in the country.
Wow.
But when I was a junior, I decided to go out. I said, why not? And so I tried out for the team and made it.
That's really impressive. I mean, that's Division I school, isn't it?
Yeah, we won the championship 2 years in a row during that time. We had the top player in the country on the team. And three players, my teammates, went to play on the Olympics and won gold medals in '84.
Wow. So what did you take up academically at UCLA?
I started as an economics major, and it was okay. It was a bit dry. And then I kind of meandered over to anthropology and really loved anthropology, socio-physical. And so I started to take a lot of classes in anthropology as well as econ.
And ultimately your major was what?
Economics with a minor in anthropology.
When did you start thinking about becoming a lawyer?
Good question, Louis. Really not I don't know. I was wanting to be a lawyer. It was more, I wasn't really ready to go out into the working world, and I wanted more education. I just didn't feel like I had enough. And a lot of my friends parents were lawyers. I came from a medical family, so I really didn't know anything about it except through my friend's parents. And I decided to go to law school because I thought it was kind of the direction I wanted to head into, but I didn't really know, and I wasn't really ready to go out into the working world. So I decided to go to law school.
So you went to law school directly out of UCLA?
I did, with only a 2-month break from graduation to the start of law school.
Where did you go?
I went to Pepperdine. Pepperdine was a relatively small law school at the time. It's gotten much bigger and much more notoriety since I went to school there.
Might be one of the most beautiful campuses in the United States.
I think it is probably one of the most beautiful campuses. A lot of people that I went to school with chose it just for that reason. They like the pictures of the cliffs and the Pacific Ocean.
Well, what was the experience of going to law school like for you?
Pepperdine was really different. It was really conservative for me. It was and it was very diverse, which what I appreciated. Diverse in people from around the different country and different economic backgrounds. There was some very, very wealthy kids that went to that school as well as not. So it was pretty diverse in that way.
What did your friends what did your friends and family think about you wanting to become a lawyer?
More like I was a black sheep, My sister went to medical school. My dad was a doctor. My mom was a nurse. My uncle was a doctor. I mean, it was just everything was medical related. So I was the first one in my family to go into law. So they didn't really. I mean, it wasn't. There was no fanfare or anything, and just in my family, education was really valued. So it's kind of like more expected that you would do that compared to, it was just expected that you would go to higher education.
After you got out of law school, what was your first legal job?
I started, fortunately enough, in the Alameda County's DA's office, which was just an amazing experience, and really grateful that I had the opportunity to have that as my first job.
Yeah, well, as you know, that was my first job too, and I feel exactly the same way. I mean, it was a great experience, and I'm really grateful for it. What prompted you to go to the Alameda County District Attorney's Office? I mean, how did you get from Pepperdine to Alameda County?
Well, Alameda County, as you're well aware, in the DA's office, it's fairly political, and they also had a hiring program as well. You had to be a clerk in there in the summer, and I was an outsider. One of my mentors was political and was connected to the Democratic Party, and he was able to get my foot in the door and get some interviews into some of the DA's office. And he was really the one that recommended that I start my career as a lawyer. It was his philosophy, and which I completely agree with 100%, that it's really not what law school that you go to that dictates your career, but what your first job is.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so as a result, he recommended that as a lawyer, that how you get things done as a lawyer is, you can negotiate, but if you can't reach a resolution, things are decided in the courtroom. So you have to know what's going on in a courtroom. You have to be proficient in litigation in order to be an effective lawyer. He said, as a result of going into the DA's office, you get that experience right away. And so that's the reason why I decided to do that.
So what were your initial experiences in the DA's office?
Being an outsider, I was kind of cautious with the people I met, but I quickly gained a lot of friends and as you know, it's very important to have allies when you practice law. And so I made some really good, close friends. And when you practice in the DA's office, it's like going to war when you're in a courtroom, when you're a courtroom lawyer. And the people that you go to battle with, you become really tight with.
Yeah, well, we went to battle with each other in court, as I mentioned, and we've become pretty good friends. Yeah,
it's interesting, when it's like, but we were opponents as compared to being on the same side and fighting on the same side. And as an opponent, when you do battle with, and then you gain respect for the, your opponent, and, you can bond that way as well.
I was just thinking about this, Kevin. I was looking at it. I think you said somewhere, maybe it's on your website, that you joined the Alameda County DA's office in March of 1987.
That's correct.
And that was just a couple of months after I left the DA's office. And for some reason, I thought we had overlapped in the DA's office, but maybe not.
I think my memory is that you had just recently left and you were practicing criminal defense.
And when did we first meet? Do you remember that? Do you have some recollection of
Yes, I do. I think we were when I was in Fremont, when I was in the Fremont division, in the Fremont office of the DA's, and I think that's where we first met.
And I came down there as a defense attorney?
Yes.
Interesting. So you've been a lawyer for a while now. What do you really like about practicing law? I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. Obviously, there must be something about it that you find attractive.
I love practicing law, Lewis. Love it. It is very, once you understand the tools that you have and you understand how to use the tools, then you can apply it in your own particular creativity.
Can you be a little specific about that? Be specific about that.
Like it's an art to me, and the it's like a paintbrush, an artist's paintbrush or a sculptor's, knife. You can use it to, create something within certain rules, and so you really have creativity involved, and there is the logical aspect of practicing law, and there's also the art of it. And so it's the art that really distinguishes between, the average lawyer and who's a good lawyer.
Would you recommend going to law school to someone who was just coming out of college?
I would never dissuade anybody from going into law. I think law, it can offer somebody, you don't necessarily need to be a lawyer to go to law school. There's a lot of other things that you can do with a JD degree. Teach, or you can go into sales, it's business. You can go into business. There's just a lot of different, it's a very versatile degree to have. And so I would never dissuade anybody from not going to law school if that's what they have some interest in. Or even like me, really not sure, where to go. I fell into litigation because I was fortunate enough to have my first trial when I was a second-year law student in federal court here in San Francisco. And after that trial experience I got hooked. I found it. This is what I want to do.
When you were growing up, were there any kind of shows, legal TV shows that you watched?
Yeah, there was that LA Law. That was pretty fun to watch. But, it wasn't really inspiring. I wasn't really inspired by any TV shows to be a lawyer. It's really my friends, parents.
Is there anything that you know now that you really wished you'd known before you started getting into practicing law?
Oh, great question. Really how to manage the stress. Being a lawyer is super stressful. I think we really, as a profession, we have a high incidence of alcoholism and drug addiction. And for me, managing the stress came through exercise, physical fitness. So I was unprepared for, the stress involved. I was getting gray hair when I was 26 because of the stress that I was suffering.
Well, at least you have some hair that could go gray.
Well, at 26, I hope I did.
Since you brought it up, what sort of physical things, exercise things, recreational things do you enjoy doing?
Now, I had a serious health crisis, so my choices are a lot more limited. But I found yoga, which is probably, for me, the best medicine to combat stress. I also have found Pilates. I also lift weights. I also try to go on some nice hikes.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about yoga. I don't personally practice yoga, but I keep hearing from people that it's a really great thing to be involved in.
It helps you. Really, the basic of yoga is connecting your breath to your movement. It helps you stay centered and grounded. Releases, it's a really good release for stress. I got into it because, as I mentioned before, I had a very serious health crisis that just about cost me my life. It was a really profound experience where literally I had left my body as a result of the trauma. And when I returned to it, my body was completely, it was like I almost had to reconnect with it. And so I was able to, somebody told me about yoga, and I started to practice it, and it really gave me my body back. And now, after practicing it for about 7 years, I'm doing things that I never even dreamed possible I could be doing at my age. I opened up a yoga studio about 4 years ago because I was so grateful to yoga. I wanted to put that energy back out in the community.
Really? Is it still a viable business?
Well, through the pandemic, we've had to close it since the pandemic, and we probably we'll have to close the doors because the county just won't let us open. Probably we're getting word for at least till springtime, and we just cannot operate that way. So who knows? We might restart it, when the pandemic is over. But at the moment, no, there's no yoga classes.
Well, one of the questions that's on my outline that I often ask people is, have you ever had a near-death experience other than in an automobile? And you've touched on that now, and I'm wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about that and how that kind of has affected your way of thinking about your life going forward.
Well, it's even more a way of change of thinking, Louis. It's a change of perspective, and it's a change of awareness.
Well, let's first of all, what happened, if you don't mind talking about it?
Yeah, it is personal. I had what they call a ascending aorta dissection. Now, what is that? I had no idea what it was until after I woke up from surgery from having one. There was a famous actor, John Ritter. He was in a sitcom called Three's Company, and he died unexpectedly from the same condition. The survival rate for the dissection that I had is in the single digits. It's very difficult to survive. It is where your aorta basically shreds. It begins to rip apart spontaneously, and the blood flow just does not get to parts of your body, and it's very lethal. Unfortunately, I was in the right place at the right time, and through circumstances based on divine intervention, I was able to survive it. And
so, how has that affected your thinking going forward in life?
Well, not only that brought on other complications. After I had my aorta shredded, it caused all these blood clots, and so after I was saved by my surgeon, I had strokes. I had 4 strokes 2 days later caused by these blood clots. So not only had an injury to my heart area, I had an injury to my brain. I mean, one trauma enough is enough to, completely change your life. And I had to deal with both at this simultaneously. And then a week later, because the rip was so bad, it went down my leg, it cut off the blood flow to my kidney. So then I was dying of kidney failure several days after that. So I had a second surgery after that. So it was kind of one thing that led to another. And fortunately, I was able to survive everything.
How long ago was that now?
7 years ago.
And do you consider yourself completely recovered now?
You can never recover from something like that, Louis. It's just, you just don't, it's like, as I tell people, it's like a lightning hitting a tree. The tree is gone, but the roots are still there, and then you grow, and you grow a different way.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you were going through that. I mean, I remember coming down to the hospital and visiting you, and seeing your family there, and yeah. Well, I mean, it was just something that one would do, and I certainly remember that. Tell me a little.
Yeah, it was very unexpected. Very unexpected. Came out of literally nowhere, and I always kept in shape, and was to my friends and family. I was, the best shaped person they knew. And to something like this happened to me, that was very, very surprising. But on the other hand, I think it contributed to my survival.
Now, you have a couple of children.
Yes, I have 2 children,
And
a son and a daughter.
And how is practicing law related to you and your relationship with your kids?
Well, because I have my own practice, I'm able to have a lot more flexibility. And so I can spend a lot more time with my kids as they were growing up, to be able to go to their school functions and see their sporting events. And so it's been great. But I contribute that, the fact that it's because of my own business, having the flexibility of having my own practice, to that ability to just be able to be there for my kids when they, during significant times in their life.
What, if anything, would you change about the way the legal system works?
I don't know if what I have to say can even, can help it. This really minor things, depending on what's being done, but nothing really. I don't really have anything significant to change the overall system. It's an imperfect, but it's a beautiful system, Louis. And as you practice law, and when you realize the power of the courtroom rests with the people in the jury, who are just ordinary citizens of your community, it's really beautiful, very powerful, and it's very humbling.
Do you think the system is fair? Do you think the legal system is fair?
Well, it's not perfect, like I said. What is perfect? But it is, but it strives to be perfect. It strives to have what I love about our system. It promotes and strives for that outcome, to be fair.
Now, the last, year, we've been dealing with this COVID thing, and that has certainly put a crimp in a lot of our activities. But before that, what sort of travel experience have you had? Where have you been in the world?
I've been all over Europe. I've been to a lot of Asia, Central America, Australia, New Zealand. I would consider myself well-traveled. I have yet to go to Africa or South America.
Any place in particular that you really enjoyed?
Tokyo.
Why?
It's very advanced city. It is very clean. People are very hospitable. People are very honest. The technology there is mind-blowing. The food, culture. It's just an amazing city.
Now, you were partially of Japanese descent, right?
Yes, my father was full Japanese.
And do you speak any of the language?
No, he grew up during the war, and he felt the need to Americanize, and he tried to, he distanced himself from Japanese language and culture to assimilate more. So he did. So we were not really encouraged to speak Japanese. So no, as I tell my friends, only in a restaurant.
If you couldn't be a lawyer, is there some other job or profession that you would choose to do?
I never really thought of that. I never really thought of that. I consider myself being able to adapt and do whatever I could want to put my mind to. But I've never done that yet. And as I'm kind of concluding my career in law, I'm starting to think about what other alternatives are there. Maybe some type of private business, but I don't know, Louis. It's being a lawyer is the only thing I know right now.
What sort of things keep you up at night?
You mean like what goes through I don't know. My sleep is terrible, but I blame that.
Mine too. So that's why I ask, it's like
I blame that on my what happened to me. I don't want to sleep. I want to experience. I know what death is. I want to experience as much as I can before I revisit that. And so going to sleep is been difficult for me since that event.
Let's say you came into some real money. I mean, like a few $1 billion. What, if anything, would you do differently in your life?
other than live in a nicer house in a nicer area.
Well, you live in a pretty nice house in a pretty nice area.
I would have to, the power of money is, the power to affect other people. And I would hopefully try to spend it in a way that would help other people, benefit other people. But I can, I do that in my own small way, with my employees, people that I come into contact with on my smaller basis. I would just probably do more of that.
Can you be specific about any of that?
Well, if an employee of mine has some kind of personal issue where they're struggling or need money, I'll be there for them. Friends, those types of situations.
Let's say you had a magic wand and there was one thing that you could change in the world, in the legal world or just the world in general. What one thing would you like to change?
I would love to change the people's awareness that their life in and of itself is the joy.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, is there anything else that you want to talk about that we haven't discussed that's on the list or not on the list, or anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, I guess since your show is focusing on the practice of law and lawyers in general, and for those listening that are contemplating a life of law, go for it. And obviously, if you're a talented lawyer, the money will be there, but don't go into it for money. Go into it for helping people. The philosophy that I've been practicing with in my own firm has always been putting the client's needs first, the client's case first, and put any type of personal needs behind that. The better you take care of your client, you will be taken care of. And you have to have faith in that. Do not put your needs first. And if you do, then that's where the problems will come in. Always put the client's needs first.
Kevin Taguchi, thank you so much for joining me today on Love Thy Lawyer. I really enjoyed talking to you and learning a little bit more about you.
Thank you, Louis. It was really fun as well. And it was really nice catching up with you as well.
That's it for today's episode of Love Thy Lawyer. If you enjoyed listening, please share it with a friend and subscribe to the podcast. If you have comments or suggestions, send me an email. I promise I'll respond. Take a look at our website at lovethylawyer.com, where you can find all of our episodes, transcripts, photographs, and information. Thanks as always to my guests who share their wisdom, and to Joel Katz for music, Brian Matheson for technical support, and Tracy Harvey. I'm Louis Goodman.
I believe in fairness. I really have a gut reaction to what is fair, and it's just kind of comes naturally to me. And so that's, it's an instinct I have, and I operate on that instinct of fairness. And when I see something that's not fair, I love the law because I can correct it. I can help set it right.